Happy Selection Sunday to everybody. Is everybody as excited as I am? Oh, for real though. What's up, everybody? Hey, does anybody know? You know, I looked at the times, and I forget this every year. I go through the same thing every single year with this playoff selection day. So the show comes on at 12, but it's on till 4. We don't have to wait till the end to hear the top 4, right? They do that first, and then they do 3 hours of bullshit after that, right? I'm right about that, right? Because I'm not streaming for 4 hours. Can't do it. Man, there's going to be some butthurt teams. And this is the same thing every year. This is the same thing every year. Hold on, let me turn this down here. It's getting on my nerves. This is the same thing every year we see. This is my biggest gripe about not expanding the playoffs to 8 teams. First of all, if you look at the top 8 teams this year, maybe the only one that won't make it into the top 4 today, but probably could make a case for it as far as being one of the 4 best teams, just not with the best record, is Oklahoma. But again, losing has to matter. I kind of feel bad for Oklahoma, even though I shouldn't, because I do think they're probably one of the 4 best teams in the country. Let's put it this way. You put Oklahoma against Georgia, you put Oklahoma against Cincinnati, you put Oklahoma against Texas A&M, I think they would beat all 3 of those teams. But that's, and some of those lines might be really, really close, but the big question today that everybody wants to know is what's going to happen with Notre Dame. So I'm not going back on what I said for the past 2 weeks. I said there's really not any outcome that I can imagine where Notre Dame doesn't get in. And the playoff committee has set the precedence for this. So last week, you remember, Florida was at 6. They lost to a 3-win LSU team who's not good. They only fell 1 spot to 7. So I understand, okay, people say, well, that was a close game, Pete. That's why they only dropped a spot. Well, LSU's unranked 3-win team. Notre Dame yesterday, yes, they got their asses whipped. We saw the game. But is there a team in the country after 11 games or after the full season has been played that has a better win than Notre Dame? And the answer to that is no, they don't. Notre Dame has the best win in the country. And this is the other problem. If you're a Texas A&M fan, Texas A&M probably deserves to be in the playoffs based on going 9-1 in the SEC. But what's Texas A&M's best win? Florida? Florida now has 3 losses. Florida lost to LSU. Is that great of a win now? I'm not convinced of it. That's Texas A&M's problem. Now, it did help out Texas A&M that Florida played Alabama close last night. Because if Florida would have went out there and got blown out off the field, like many of us suspected was going to happen, I'm one of them. So Vegas made a lot of money last night because I'm sure a lot of money went on Alabama at minus 17 and they didn't cover. But that helped out A&M's case. So they're saying, look, we beat Florida, a team that just went last night toe-to-toe with Alabama until the end. That's a feather in A&M's cap. Notre Dame's getting in. Notre Dame's getting in. I think Notre Dame deserves to be in. It's easy to look at one game and say, oh, look, they don't belong there. They got blown out in the ACC championship game. That's easy to do that because it's fresh on our mind. It happened just last night. But let's look at the playoffs is supposed to be about the entirety of the entire season, not one game. Notre Dame's played amazing this year. They beat Clemson in South Bend on November 7th. They had the best win in the country. They only had 1 loss, albeit a bad loss as far as the scoreboard was concerned. Still, Notre Dame will get in there at number 4, and I believe we'll see Ohio State at number 3. Anything less, anything different than that would actually be pretty surprising to me. And, we can go around and say, well, Notre Dame's going to get blown out by whoever they play in the first round of the playoffs, particularly if they play Alabama. I mean, maybe not, though. I mean, it's fun to say what would happen. Just like everybody said last night that Alabama was going to blow Florida out. That didn't happen. What's Texas A&M's second best win? Auburn. Right? Got to be Auburn. Right? Whoever gets the third and fourth spot will simply hop in line for an equal opportunity ass whooping. Yeah. So, again, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here. I mean, I think there's so many teams. The fourth spot is so hard to pick on a year-to-year basis because, like I've always said, there's typically not 4 teams good enough to win the national championship. That's just the way it is. That hurts people's feelings. I was the first one to say that if Clemson lost to Notre Dame yesterday, I did not want Clemson in the playoffs. If you lose twice in the same season to a playoff caliber team, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Do I think that Clemson's one of the 4 best teams? Of course I do. But if they had lost last night, I would not want them in the playoffs. They wouldn't deserve to be there. You play the games for a reason. So,
Answer me.
I don't think...
Ask you, who is your daddy? Who's your daddy, Gary? Who's your daddy? You. Uh-huh. And whose team is this? Is this your team? Or is this your daddy's team?
That was an accident. I was waving my arms around and I hit the button. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So, but there's not 4 teams even this year good enough to win the national championship. I really believe that. I think right now Clemson and Alabama have separated themselves yet again. And here's another question I posed for the chat. Everybody in the chat here. And I want people that aren't Clemson or Alabama fans to answer this. Because I know I got a bunch of both of those different fan bases in here. Are you tired of seeing Alabama and Clemson every year? Almost every year. I can't say every year because last year it wasn't. Alabama wasn't even in the playoffs. But for the most part, over the past 6 years, it's been Alabama, Clemson at some point in the playoffs. A bunch of national championship games against each other. People are getting tired of seeing that. Are you one of those people? Okay, let's see here. Yes, yes, yes. Everyone is no. Yes, yes, yes. Hell yes. Yes, Boomer Sooner. Yes, I honestly am. Seen a couple of no's there. There's a reason I bring this up. And it's an important reason. I've seen some people say no. Notre Dame fan says the games are fun, so no. So this is what I'm getting at. I guess from a fan perspective, I could see how that could get tiring, seeing the same teams in virtually every year. Not every year, but virtually every year. I can understand that mentality. At the end of the day, though, like somebody just said, they're great games and they're great teams. I want to see, even if Clemson is not one of them, I want to make that very clear. Even if Clemson is not one of the 2 best teams, I want to see the 2 best teams play, and I want to see a good game. And we've seen that more times than not with Clemson and Alabama. There's been a couple of matchups they had that were sort of one-sided, one time for Alabama, one time for Clemson. Most of the time, they've been pretty entertaining. If they end up playing again this season for the national championship, which I think they'll both be favored in their first playoff games, I don't think anybody's doubting that. I think it'll be a evenly matched game. Alabama will be favored in the game. Not by much, though. Maybe 3 points, something along those lines. Thank you for the donation, Alakazam. So proud of my Clemson Tigers. I was really shocked on how good our offensive line did, given Clemson just now started getting top-rated O-line out of high school. Well, that's been Clemson's biggest weakness all season is the depth and the youth on the offensive line. And I agree with you. They've obviously gotten better over the season. And last night they played the best game of the season. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Orange 1973. He says, what does he say? He says, good afternoon, Pete. Good afternoon to you too, sir. Thank you for supporting the show. I see we have about 290 people in here right now. Everybody, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. If you're new here, I do these college football videos and live streams year round, not just during the football season. There is no off season for Pigskin Pete. I appreciate the support. No, Cincinnati will not be in. The group of 5 should make their own playoffs. It's that simple. Stop. Look, there's no scenario where a group of 5 team gets in a 14 playoff. Whoever told you that was lying to you. Cut them out of your life. They're liars. Chiefs or Saints? That's a good one, man. That's the game of the day. I don't know, man. I think the Chiefs would probably win a close one, but I'm not sure about that. JJ says my top 3 teams are Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and A&M. A lot of people agree with you, JJ. A&M has a legitimate gripe. Any team that's played 10 games as opposed to somebody who's played 6 has a legitimate gripe. Who was I having this conversation with the other night on my call-in show? It was anyway, I can't remember. I think it was Lou Patton. Lou, are you in here, Lou? Lou Patton. Lou Patton is an A&M fan. I said, I understand your gripe. You know, I get it. However, if it's supposed to be about the 4 best teams and not the 4 most deserving teams, Ohio State would be favored against A&M on a neutral field. For good reason. If they give Clemson a pass on November 7th for losing to Notre Dame because they were missing 4 defensive starters and Trevor Lawrence, they gave him a pass. Let's call it what it is. I mean, the game was close, but they gave him a pass. Clemson never dropped out of the top 4 during the entire season. You almost have to afford that pass to Ohio State. Yesterday, they had 22 players out, including several, at least 2 of their best players. I know Chris Olave in particular. Now, Justin Fields didn't play great, but Ohio State, I think an Ohio State team who has the majority of their starters, and no team at this time of the season is going to have all of their starters, right? Clemson's still got a bunch of guys out too, but the majority of them is one of the 4 best teams in the country. So is it fair? No. If I was a Texas A&M fan, I'd be screaming, it's not fair that a team that plays 6 games gets in ahead of us. I get it. But I'm not an A&M fan, and obviously I'm not an Ohio State fan. So on the outside looking in, I'm going, forget all that other nonsense. Which one of these teams is better? Which one of these teams is actually one of the 4 best teams in the country? And to me, Ohio State is better than A&M. Maybe I'm wrong. I want to, maybe this is another part of it too. I want to see Clemson and Ohio State play. I think Clemson's better than Ohio State this year. I think they'll beat them. So part of it is selfish, for sure. I'm not going to deny that.
The phrase, "Who's your daddy?" comes to mind.
You tell me, who is your daddy and what does he do?
It's not about Ohio State. It's about Notre Dame. Huh? I understand they only played 7 games. So had Ohio State played 8 games. No, they didn't even play 7 games. They only played 6 games. But let's say they did play 8 games or 9. What is the number? What number of games that has to be played would satisfy somebody to say that Ohio State's one of the 4 best teams? How many? What's the threshold? Is it 5? Is it 6? Is it 7? Is it 8? I don't know. You tell me. Six. Ohio State fans are saying 6. That's all you need. Yeah. See, this is the problem. Everybody has a different amount of games. Just look at the chat. You got some people saying 8, some people saying 9, some people saying 8, 7, 6, 5, 7 or 8, 9. So, yeah, I got the TV on. It's right here. If you're saying put the TV on the screen, that's not happening because it's a copyright violation. So I'll talk about what I see on the screen. You can watch it on your TV with me, or if you're not around a TV, you can just listen to me announce the rankings. 57, 12, 6. Yes. And that's another thing. Bobby G brings up a great point here. Yes, A&M's only a 1-loss team. Yes, that loss was to Alabama, but they lost by 28 points. Or I think they lost actually by like 24 points. Anyway, that doesn't matter. They lost by over 3 or 4 touchdowns. And they don't have a division championship, and they don't have a conference championship. And according to the playoff committee, whether you believe them or not, which I happen to not believe them on any given year, when discussing the 4th or 5th best team in the country, they say they do value division championships and conference championships, which is why if you take them at face value at their word, you have to believe that they're going to put Ohio State in there. Because even though they only played 6 games, they're undefeated, they have a win over a top 10 Indiana team, and now they have a Big Ten championship. So going off of what they say, and the fact that they've had Ohio State in the top 4 since they only played 1 game. Forget 6. There was teams, Clemson was 4-0 or 5-0. I don't even remember, 4 or 5-0 in the top 4. And Ohio State was 1-0 in the top 4. They've set the precedent for Ohio State to be in the top 4. Don't see it changing now. Kirby Dumb says Florida is the 3rd best team, but we didn't take care of the regular season. You're not the 3rd best team. Are you talking about in the SEC? You're not the 3rd best team in the country. You might be talking about it maybe in the SEC. You got 3 losses, sir. 3. 1, 2, 3. Bobby Cheese is an Ohio State fan. He says, I will agree as of today, we don't look good as Bama or Clemson, but that's the disadvantage of playing only 6 games every other weekend. Well, this is the other problem with the 2020 scheduling. First, there's a lot of problems with 2020. We all know that. So there's advantages to only playing 6 games, and there's disadvantages. So which one's more important? The knock on Ohio State is that the more games you play, obviously the more chance you risk of injuring players, right? Justin Fields, every time he goes out there and takes the field for a game, is at risk of injury. If you lose Justin Fields, that's a big deal. If you lose Master Teague, that's a big deal. We saw yesterday, if you lose Chris Olave, whether it's to injury or otherwise, that's a big deal. So you cannot just ignore that. On the other hand of that, what you just said is true. The fewer games you play, the fewer, the less experienced of a team you are going into the playoffs. So what is more important, experience or injury risk? I say they cancel each other out. I mean, I don't know. Clayton Cragen. Pete says, we will always be Ohio State's daddy.
Who's your daddy now?
Chase Henderson says, Bobby Durkin sent me over here. Bobby's my boy. May there, Bobby, for watching. I'm glad that I finally got to your channel. Well, I'm glad you finally did too, sir. Thank you for stopping in. You're amazing and fantastic. Volusia Orange says, why not one game for Ohio State? Why not 0? It's all based on reputation and not actual football. What if they beat Nebraska 40-0 and miss the rest? It's BS. Out. I hope you're not saying you're out. You're saying they should be out, right? Well, I mean, look, man, I understand. Again, I understand what you're saying. I understand the gripe. So that's the reason I ask, what's the magic number? Is it 6? Is it 7? Is it 8? Is it 9? Is it 10? I mean, I don't know. You're saying why not 0? Well, of course, look, sir, that's ridiculous. Of course, a team that plays 0 games or 1 game or 2 games is not. I mean, that's why I'm saying what's the number. And I don't disagree with you, by the way. My philosophy is what the playoff committee has been telling us is the most important factor. They have never put a limit on games. They have never said you have to play this many games. They've never said you have to have a division championship. They've never said you have to have a conference championship. So it's open. It's a wide open for debate, discussion to have. But the only bylaw, the only rule in the rule books is the 4 best teams. So who do you think the 4 best teams are? Do you think, tell me in your mind, Volusia, tell me how many teams you think in the top 10 would beat Ohio State on a neutral field next week? How many of them? I'm not saying there's not any there that can't, but which one of them would you feel confident putting money on would beat Ohio State? Mark Blanton, not to mention UA losing Landon Dickerson yesterday. Yes, thank you, Mark. You're amazing and fantastic, sir. Shit. I have on the wrong channel. Look at this. All right, now I have it on the right channel. Bama Clemson and A&M would beat Ohio State. I disagree with the A&M part of it. That would probably be a good game though. Ohio State and A&M. I don't think A&M offensively can keep up with Ohio State's offense. As long as Ohio State has, doesn't have 22 players out. Kirby Dumb says on a neutral field, Florida wins against Ohio State. That would, that would be a good matchup. I'd like to see that. I would like to see that a lot. But Brett Leah Barker says Alabama's the only team that can beat the Buckeyes. Sir.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Congratulations. You tried and you failed miserably. The forecast for today is partly stupid with 100% chance of dumbass. This is why I want Clemson and Ohio State to match up against each other. That's the most delusional comment I've heard all day. Covey YT says, I don't understand why a team that just lost by 24 is about to be in the playoffs. Because the playoffs aren't determined on one game. It's determined on the entire season. And they're 10-1. And they have a win over Clemson, which in the grand scheme of things is the best win in the entire country by any team this season. So losses have to matter, wins have to matter equally. That's why. Wilkie's in the house. What's up, buddy? Wilkie says, thumbs up and subscribe. Yes, please. Thumbs up and subscribe. Again, I do these college football videos and live streams year-round. There is no off-season for Pigskin Pete. We can all have opinions about who would beat this team or that team. Who cares? It's about resume and the results in the field. Enough eye test BS. Again, Volusia, I don't disagree with you, sir. I don't disagree with you. Then you know what they need to do? They need to change the rules. And here's the other problem I have with the playoff committee, or with this argument. I have a lot of problems with the playoff committee in general, but with this argument. The playoff committee could have very easily changed the language of the rules and the requirements to make the college football playoff, knowing, hell, they've only just started doing this, the playoff rankings for the past 3 weeks. We've known about the pandemic since March. We've known since at least the middle of the summertime that the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC were not playing out of conference games against each other, and they all had different amount of games they were going to play, and that there was a huge possibility that some games might be canceled and not rescheduled. So why didn't the playoff committee set the precedent? This is what my question for you. They could have easily said, you need to play a minimum of 8 games to even be considered for the playoffs. But they didn't do that. So here we are. There is no rule that says you have to play a certain amount of games. I understand the gripe. If you're A&M, if you're a lot of different teams, if you're Cincinnati, you have a gripe and say, hey, we played these games. Ohio State's only played this amount of games. We deserve to be in ahead of them. They should have made the rule that way. Then if that was the case, if there was a minimum 8-game threshold, Ohio State wouldn't be even eligible for the playoffs right now. We wouldn't be having this discussion. But they didn't make that rule. Brett Leah Barker says, Clemson can't hang. Right. Kendall Outlaw gives Cincinnati a chance. Texas A&M had their chance. Well, Kendall, here's what I would say. First of all, thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for watching. Give Cincinnati a chance to do what? To play Alabama, because that's what it would be. Does anybody want to see that? I mean, let's be honest. I know people are like, Cincinnati. They're undefeated. Great story, blah, blah, blah. Does anybody want to see them get completely murdered by Alabama? That's like a bye week for Alabama. I mean, does anybody want to see Alabama score 80 points on Cincinnati? I don't. I want to see a competitive game. This is the discussion of most deserving versus best. Because Cincinnati is not one of the 4 best teams in the country. They're not. They might be one of the 4 most deserving teams, but they're not one of the 4 best. For the memes, yes. Yeah, and that's the other thing. So they'll send Cincinnati to a good bowl. They'll get a New Year's 6 bowl game. Trying to think of who the possible matchups for Cincinnati would be. Maybe Georgia, right? Maybe A&M, if A&M doesn't get in. Hearing if A&M does not get into the playoffs today, they could go to the Orange Bowl and play against North Carolina. Or possibly Notre Dame, if Notre Dame doesn't make it in, which I think they will. So there's a lot more to look out here for today, other than just the top 4 teams. We'll get to see some of these big bowl game matchups and how they play out. Of course, half of Georgia's team has given up on the season. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I said given up. You heard me correctly. They didn't opt out. There's no such thing as opting out at the end of the season. You opt out before the season. When the season's almost over, it's not opting out anymore. It's quitting. And so half of Georgia's team has quit. And we saw the same thing a couple of years ago when they played Texas in the Sugar Bowl. Half of the team quit before the Sugar Bowl, and they lost to Texas as a result. Stephen Wilhelm says they need to expand the playoffs. Well, you're going to get your wish, sir. I don't want to see the playoffs expanded, but if it makes people feel better, if they want to see more bad playoff matchups, blowouts, fine. It's going to happen. It's just not going to happen until about 2024 when the current playoff TV contracts expire. Yeah, anybody who thinks that their college team would beat a pro team, here's what I want you to do. Just follow my instructions very carefully, okay? First thing you do is make a fist. All right. Then you put the fist up next to your head about 6 or 7 inches away, maybe more. You can go up to about 10 inches out. Then you open your hand and smack yourself across the face as hard as you can. Felicia Orange says, deserving best. Best is meaningless, win games. Yeah. With Adam Gay's coaching, they would beat Alabama. They would not beat Alabama. Okay. Now, Artie Pyle says, at least I won $100 for the bet. Ian Book will make a stupid comment. All right, come on. What are they doing here? When are they going to announce the rankings here? It's a 12:15. Jordan, that's exactly what I'm telling you. The Jets would annihilate Alabama. You know what the difference between the Jets and Alabama is? About 50 NFL players on the roster. Difference. That's the difference. I hope you're right, Virginia Capital Coasters. We'll see. Tim Tom, yes, I'm giving Oklahoma love. And I've been hard on them all year. They've earned my respect. See, again, this is another thing. Is Oklahoma one of the 4 best teams in the country right now? Probably. If you're talking about right now, as of December the 20th, 2020, Oklahoma probably, as we sit, is one of the 4 best teams in the country. But you lost 2 games to start the season out. Like, you can't just, it is what it is. There's a bunch of teams not playing their bowl games. What is Clemson's weakness? Offensive line. Mainly because of just youth and inexperience on the offensive line, not because of talent. Yeah, the show is taking forever. You're right. I agree with Matt. McGraw says it will be the same 4 teams as last week, but in a different order. So I think everybody can pretty much agree we're going to see Alabama 1, Clemson 2. And there's no way those 2 things don't happen. Question is, who's 3 and 4 and what order are they in? I tend to believe that Ohio State, which is even crazier, is going to move up to 3. And Notre Dame is going to drop to 4 because of the margin of loss that they had yesterday. I would actually be very surprised if they knocked Notre Dame out of the top 4. Of course, you have Jimbo Fisher and other teams making a case, very valid points of why they should be 4 and not Notre Dame. We'll see. Tyler thinks that Texas A&M will jump Notre Dame. Maybe. You are just an OSU hater. Yeah, I hate them so much that I've had them in my top 4 the entire season. And all of last season, too, I had them number 1 the entire season. That's how much I hate them. You're just a Clemson hater because they're your daddy.
You tell me, who is your daddy and what does he do?
The phrase, who's your daddy, comes to mind.
Who's your daddy now?
Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, even though OSU doesn't deserve it. I agree. Here we are a year later, and Chris Hartman is still crying about the refs. Oh, man. Does that ever get old? Seems to me like it would. Hell Rel says, I need Trevor Lawrence in an Atlanta Falcons jersey next season. No. You see? Hate the Falcons. I'm not convinced he's going to get drafted by the Jets, though. I mean, the Jets are such a bad organization that they might screw that one up too and not draft him. First of all, they have a lot more needs than the quarterback. I mean, Sam Darnold is not near the worst player on that football team. So, if they're looking at the long haul, they're better off getting as many picks as they can. They could trade that first pick for the farm because there's a bunch of teams that really do need Trevor Lawrence and want him badly. If they can get several first-round picks for years to come, first and second-round picks, the Jets might be worth it for them to trade the pick. Because, again, they've got a lot of different needs. They need to rebuild from the ground up. So, yeah, I mean, that brings a lot of teams into play. Right? Any of the other top 10 teams that are picking in the top 10 could easily trade up. They'd have to bet the farm or trade the farm to get them, but they could still get them. Oh, I agree that would be a bad move to trade and not take them. But we're talking about the Jets. They make bad move after bad move after bad move. How Adam Gase ever even got the job there as the head coach is beyond me. He was not qualified for the job in any way, shape, or form. He's never won anywhere. Yeah. I kind of feel sorry for Darnold. It's not his fault they're so terrible. I mean, he's not Trevor Lawrence, don't get me wrong, but he's not. I mean, he's a bona fide starter, starting NFL quarterback. There's a lot of teams that would love to have Sam Darnold. No, Trask will not be a top 10 pick. Whoever said that. No. I would have thought that the rankings would have come out by now. Again, this is a 4-hour show. When in the hell do they announce at the end of the 4 hours or at the beginning? I'm not live streaming for 4 hours. Not happening. Slim Shady Canes, my opinion, if they put OSU or Notre Dame in the playoffs after what I saw yesterday, I'm convinced the BCS is better. I'm not. I mean, the formula or the algorithm or whatever it is that they use for the BCS is entered by people. It's a formula created by people. So those biases still exist in the BCS system. I think that's very clear that they did. Thank you, Slim Shady, by the way. I like the playoff system better than the BCS. All right, here we go. Number 1, Alabama. Here we go, folks. Shocker. So, number 2, Clemson Tigers. This number 3 will be very telling. They're going to drag this out. Let's go here. Let's get on with it. Ohio State at 3. So we already know. This is what I said. So Clemson and the Sucknuts are going to meet again in the first round of the playoff. Thank you. I love all stages of Jesus. Let's see who number 4 is here. And then I'll go on my Ohio State rant. Everybody just stick around. We'll see who number 4 is. I think it's going to be Notre Dame. Some people believe that A&M is going to jump into that 4th spot. I still think you're going to see the Irish at 4. We'll see. Got any Irish fans in here about to shit themselves? The girl who ghosted me is an OSU fan. Come on! While we're waiting on them to announce the 4th team, I love all stages of Jesus. I like little baby Christmas Jesus. He might be my favorite. You know the little baby Christmas Jesus in the manger? Teenage Jesus, who starts to grow a little bit of a beard. And then flip-flop Jesus, who is the Jesus that we all know and love, who died on the cross. Full beard and flip-flops. Flip-flop Jesus. I prayed for the past couple of weeks to little baby Christmas Jesus, because it is Christmas time. And little baby Christmas Jesus answered my prayers. I wanted Clemson and Ohio State to play in the first round of the playoffs this year, because like you've seen in the chat here, all I keep hearing is that Ohio State should have won last year, Ohio State should have won last year, Ohio State should have won last year. So now what I want to see is Clemson go out there and absolutely humiliate, embarrass, and curb stomp the Sucknuts so they can stop talking about 2019 and just take their ass whooping like a man in 2020. And if Clemson does beat them, or when Clemson does beat them, they will be 0-5. Be careful what you wish for, Sucknuts. Did you really want to see Clemson in the first round of the playoffs this year? Did you? Did you? I'm just kidding. No, I think it'll be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. Come on, who's the 4th team? What is this? Thank you, little baby Jesus, Christmas Jesus. Notre Dame! Told you. Somebody send a police officer over to Jimbo Fisher's house right now. So we're going to see A&M's going to come in at 5, obviously. Who's going to be 6? Is it Cincinnati? Or is it Oklahoma? Some people think Oklahoma's going to really pole vault up the rankings here to 6 or 7, which is entirely possible. But anyway, what we're going to see probably is Texas A&M at and North Carolina in the Orange Bowl, which I think is a good matchup, by the way. I'll be looking forward to that game. Is Luke Walker in here? There he is. There's Luke. Yeah, he's got the oranges out, baby. So obviously I will be a North Carolina Tar Heel fan for 1 week just because they're in the ACC. Yeah, so the rest of these, the order matters here because we want to see most likely who's going to be playing. Who's Cincinnati going to play? That's the other interesting question. Who will Cincinnati play in what bowl? I'm thinking they might play against Georgia, Oklahoma, maybe, right? A&M at 5. I just really want to see the top 20 or so. They're dragging this thing out. Oh, look at this guy. Anthony, this dude has been a fan since Clemson started being good and not getting beat down by LSU and Alabama. Well, that's funny, sir, because I was a fan and I actually went to the game and saw Clemson beat LSU in the Peach Bowl. So I saw that with my own 2 eyes. Nice try, though. You failed.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Congratulations. You tried and you failed miserably.
No,
the forecast for today is partly
please don't
stupid
do it.
with 100% chance of dumbass. MS. Come on, who wanted to see A&M get waxed by 28 more again? Yeah, that's the thing. We would have seen a rematch between... Oh, look, Oklahoma's at 6. We would have seen a rematch between A&M and Alabama, and that it would have ended the same way as it did the first time. I mean, maybe a little bit closer. What, they'd have lost by 20 instead of 28? Not interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it won't be till around 3 or 4 o'clock when they'll tell us the rest of them. A&M was 5. So I'll go ahead and, for anybody who's not watching a TV right now, Alabama was 1, Clemson 2, Ohio State 3, Notre Dame 4, A&M 5, and they just announced Oklahoma as 6, which means I think that you'll definitely see Cincinnati at 7, probably Georgia at 8. Right? Or maybe Georgia 7, Cincinnati 8. One of those two. They'll be Cincinnati and Georgia will be 7 and 8, whatever order you put them in. 9 and 10 is a little bit more difficult to figure out, though, isn't it? So Iowa State lost yesterday to Oklahoma. They moved to Oklahoma. They had Iowa State at 6 last week, so they won't drop far. Maybe they'll be at 8. Anyway, Iowa State will be in the top 10. Cincinnati will be in the top 10. Georgia will be in the top 10. So who is the one spot left? Who will get that 4th spot? Do you think OSU's offense can get more than 2 touchdowns? That offense couldn't do it last time. Yeah, I do. My thoughts on Ohio State at 3. I think that they got, you know what? I don't really know if it matters. If Ohio State got in at 3 or 4, they're going to have to play either Clemson or Alabama. I think Clemson and Alabama are pretty darn close to each other. I'd say Alabama's slightly better. But for the entire crowd of people that have been telling me for the past few weeks that Alabama's unbeatable, just go ahead and hand them the trophy. First of all, we've heard that before. It didn't work out in their favor. Second of all, they barely beat Florida last night. They are definitely beatable. Anyway, having said that, Ohio State playing Clemson or Ohio State playing Alabama, I don't think it matters. I think that both of those teams are better than Ohio State this year. So that's my thoughts on that. Yeah, you know what? There might be something to be said for that. They're not supposed to project ahead and think about which is the better matchup in the first round, but maybe they do. I mean, maybe subconsciously they do, right? They didn't want to see another matchup. Like we just saw Clemson beat the bejesus out of Notre Dame. Do we really want to see that happen again in the very next game? Maybe they put it Notre Dame at 4 instead of 3 for that reason. I mean, that's possible. Slim Shady, Pete, according to what I've found, Orange Bowl may be going by ACC standings, and that puts Miami in over UNC. That's interesting. That's very interesting. We'll find out today. And listen, Alakazam, I like to troll and poke fun at the Ohio State people. And by the way, one of the reasons I want to see Clemson and Ohio State play is obviously because of this YouTube channel. I mean, I would be lying if I said anything different than that. Of course, I respect Ohio State. I mean, they have as much or more NFL players on their roster as Clemson does. They're a great team, great program. They have a great coach, the whole 9 yards. Justin Fields is great. I know he didn't have a great day yesterday. Chris Olave, one of the top 3 receivers in the country, easily. Master Teague's playing out of his mind this year. Trey Sermon, unbelievable back. Look, Ohio State's loaded. They're loaded. I think it's going to be a good game. You're going to see me continue to troll Ohio State for the next couple of weeks because that's what I do here. And why wouldn't I? It's fun. So I hope for all the Ohio State people that are here, if you're new here, I'm going to say a lot of shit over the next couple of weeks that probably piss you off, but it's just a joke. Let's have fun with this. I'm looking forward to it. I certainly do not take Ohio State lightly. No. All I want is Florida versus Miami in the Orange Bowl. I would, yes. Dr. Jack says A&M got robbed. Yeah, they certainly have a case to be mad. This is the problem with any playoff system, whether it's 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, whatever the teams are. There's always going to be somebody that gets robbed. Always. Five 5-0 against the Bucknuts. Wouldn't that be some shit? And I'm not predicting this to happen, but wouldn't it be some shit if Notre Dame beat Alabama in the playoffs and Clemson beat Ohio State and we see a third game between Notre Dame and Clemson for the national title? Wouldn't that be something? Again, here you go. Alabama's already opening up as a 17.5 point favorite against Notre Dame. Clemson as a 6.5 point favorite over Ohio State. So for all you bettors out there, get your bets in now. If you think Clemson's going to wax the floor with Ohio State, that line is probably going to move. I would go ahead and get it in at 6.5. That's less than a touchdown. The top 6 are Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame. That's the top 4. A&M was 5 and Oklahoma was 6. Trey Sermon played great yesterday, Michael. What do you think will happen if one of the top 4 teams has a COVID outbreak in the week of the semifinals? You mean like COVID outbreak where they can't play the game? That's a good question. I mean, if they just have a COVID outbreak and they're missing a bunch of players, the game will go on. Sort of like what we saw yesterday with Ohio State. They were missing 22 players. They still played the game. If you're saying like they lose so many players they can't play, I don't know what they would do in that situation. I'm assuming since it's going to be really hard to reschedule and these dates are set in stone, you can't postpone it till later. Maybe the team that has the COVID problem, it has to forfeit. That's a great question, though. I don't know. Don't know. Mac Brown just took thank you, Luke Walker. Mac Brown just took a team from 2 wins to a New Year's Six bowl in 2 years, and it put a team in that we just beat by 40 in the Orange Bowl. I'm riding. Yeah. Look, North Carolina's better than Miami. We saw what happened. Slim, I know you're a reasonable Miami fan and everything. We saw what happened, sir. That was the biggest beatdown in college football this year, outside of maybe when Miami beat the brakes off of. No, it's worse than that. It was the biggest beatdown in the ACC this year. Rose Bowl game has been moved to Jerry's World. Yeah, I heard that. I don't think the New Year's Six bowl games get announced until close to the end of this show, which is probably another couple hours from now. They're going to announce all of the lower level bowls first, and they're going to drag this thing out all afternoon. So we probably won't know for another couple of hours. I have been, well, how long have I been on YouTube now? Over 3 years. I've been doing these college football videos on YouTube. I don't know how many videos I have talking about divisions in the ACC. They're pointless. We saw that this year it worked out the best. They should never go back to divisions again. Ever, 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 ever. There's no reason for divisions in the ACC. If you want to say there's a reason for them in the SEC because there's too many rivalries between divisions, fine, I don't give a shit. I'm talking about the ACC. There's no need for them whatsoever. However, they will go back to divisions next year. Hey, I was just propping your boys up, Coulter. I like that name, DJ Ukulele. McMurphy confirmed North Carolina and A&M in the Orange Bowl. Okay. Yeah, Clemson, Ohio State, Sugar Bowl. I mean, you could say Clemson's not solid defensively, but did you see what they did to Notre Dame's offense? I mean, they shut them down. Yeah, they scored 10 points. That last they really held them to 3 points. The last touchdown was a trash touchdown in the fourth quarter late when Clemson had their water boy in at defense. Slim Shady, thank you. Says, I never said Miami deserved it. All I said was that what I read about is them going by a conference standings, and I think it would be hilarious if that happened. Yeah. Well, what the people are telling me in the chat is that they've already announced that it's North Carolina and A&M. I can't confirm that. All right, guys, I've been on here for a little over an hour. I just wanted to stop in and do the show, the top 4 revealing with you guys. I appreciate you all stopping in. Thank you to everybody that donated. Thank you to everybody that just stopped in. If you're new here, again, make sure you hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. I really do these videos year round. Okay, it's not just something I do during the season or during the playoffs or anything like that. It's a year-round deal. Has always been for the past 3 years. There is no off-season for Pigskin Pete. We have a lot of fun around here. We like to give each other a hard time, but of course, you don't have to be a Clemson fan to be a Pigskin Pete YouTube channel fan. We have fun no matter which team you root for. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. I'll see you tomorrow over on Mark Rogers TV at noon for the College Football Coast to Coast show. So I'll see you all there. And, of course, I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Have a great day. Go Tigers. Congratulations to Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State. Sorry about your luck, A&M. Pigskin Pete's checking out.